Rappin with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. Well, on today's live stream, I welcome back Adam Derickson from Battlecorals. Hey Adam, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, good to see you, man. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So we got a whole ton of people coming in here on the live stream, and I know you promoted it on the your Reef to Reef forum and social media and all that stuff. So this is a great thing to see. So for those of you folks that do not know Adam, Adam is one of the most well-known coral vendors out there, specializing in SPS corals. He has been in the game for a number of years and has done an amazing job aquaculturing corals and making them available to us hobbyists. And a fun fact about Adam: he has the most unique Skype name I have ever heard. No joke. I'm not gonna mention what that name is, Adam. But before we get into our conversation and possibly talk about that fun fact, I want to thank the sponsors for the show, both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. I really appreciate their support, and I appreciate all the support of you folks out there tuning in. So please don't forget to hit the like button if you dig what you're watching, listening to right now, so more people can find the stream. And as always, I encourage you to ask questions and post your comments in the chat. I will do my best to keep track of those things. I'm wearing multiple hats again tonight for the show: moderator, host, technical guy. So yeah, Adam, let's
you do a good job. You do.
What's that?
Good job.
Thank you. It's definitely,
I mean, with all these tasks.
It's a big juggling act. So all right, I mentioned the very unique Skype name, and we're not going to reveal what your Skype username is for your privacy's sake, but you do have quite a talent in terms of coming up with unique names for corals. And so is this like a natural talent in terms of naming things, or have you developed this over time while you've been doing Battlecorals?
You know, a lot of these things, I don't give a whole lot of thought to a lot of these things. A lot of times it just pops into my head, and it kind of is what it is. I mean, like, I'd say 90% of like the really goofy stuff is just a thought that kind of popped in my head one day, and I may have wrote it down. I've got a big list in my notes now, like something that, you know, it seems a little funny, but you know, at the same time, you know, I understand that the name thing has gotten a little old and even passe completely, you know, like kind of been there, done that. And, you know, people are still drawn to it. But yeah, I guess we're going right into it. You know, I put an option on my site to actually shop and browse by scientific name, or as many scientific names as I could, you know, identify. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. There's a little button. I had the site, I finally updated it this spring. Just kind of an overhaul, was kind of in need of a facelift. And one of the things I had on the back burner for a long time was a way for people to shop without the names. And we kind of went back and forth on kind of how we could, me and my developer, how we could do that, and different options and how we could pull it off. And ultimately what we came up with is just a little button on the side. And I can't remember exactly what it says now. I think it just says no, it's the no glitch. So if you hit that little button, it will bring you to kind of a doppel version of the site, where all the funny names are gone, and you can shop by, you know, as many scientific names that I could plug in, and anywhere where I couldn't, it'll just say Acropora SP, like just the classic, you know, turn back the clock, and you know, all the fancy names are long gone. I've been curious. I've been wanting to start a poll to see how many people actually use that, you know, because I don't know. At the end of the day, I think people still prefer names, but you know. Trying to keep it fresh, I guess. You can now shop by scientific name at Battlecorals. By hitting the magic.
I did not know that as a fact. If anybody out there is watching, has definitely chime in on the chat, whether yay or nay. But I commend you, man. That is awesome, because the name game has kind of gotten way out of hand these days, and you know, it's made it tough for some people to be able to buy corals because of the affordability issue.
Right. Well, that's a whole nother, I mean, yeah, and that's even a whole nother avenue. for me, like I've never taken it seriously. The whole name thing. I mean, as the longer I was doing it, the sillier and kind of more ridiculous the names got. But as a means to market and sell for more, that I guess I've never really been. That kind of drives me nuts. I suppose I get it, but I guess in a way, this whole no glitz thing was kind of a social experiment to see, if people really are interested in buying coral without names in that regard, or will they pay the same price for the yellow one, the yellow acropora versus the funny named one. I don't have any way to capture metrics on this, which is probably something I should look into, just for my own sake, my own curiosity's sake. But I'll tell you what I did do. I offered an option, I think after our last thing, if you buy a battle box now, you can select one of the options is to have the names. I think it says, yes, please give me the names, or no, no, thank you. And that was just kind of an idea to get a sense, kind of like the genesis of the whole no glitz thing. But it was to get a sense of do people really care about names at all? And I'd say out of maybe 100 battle boxes that I sell, 99 of them, maybe 95 of them, the people want names. And essentially all that means is, if you choose that you don't want names, you're not going to get a bunch of unnamed crap. You're just not going to get a list of what they're called. Or you probably will get a list anyway, but you're not going to get, it's not a bunch of unnamed stuff. It's just, you don't care about the names, so you're not going to, it's just, I'm not going to tell you what they are. Versus if you like what they are, if you like the names, I could go on and on, but, in terms of jacking up prices because of a fancy name, it's never really been, it's
not your cup of tea.
I guess I not my cup of tea. It's hard to, I sell coral, so it's hard to kind of, make the distinction. But, at the end of the day, you can see sites that are clearly, taking advantage of that sort of thing. And of course, being a vendor for a while, a lot of us have a lot of the same corals. It's me, I call it this, he calls it that, and it's just a fact of life kind of fact. No one, it's not as exclusive as we would like to think. Some of the old ones I have might be because just of how I got them and how they were obtained. But, a lot of stuff in my Australian supplier, Jimmy's vendor, Jimmy's acros can get those same acros too, and he can call it whatever he wants as well. So, there's a lot of that goes on. And, I think, it's always kind of funny. I do see people using names that I have used before though. Literally hey, that's
copyrighted.
Fine,
what are you doing?
Whatever. It's like imitation, is what do they say? It's a serious form of flattery.
So, all right, we got a bunch of comments and some immediate feedback for you. Brian Mack once said, noticed that the last time I visited the website in terms of scientific names option, Canopy Explorer, I really appreciate the no glitz option. I have a hard time taking many of these growers seriously when they can't even tell me which species of acro they're offering. We got
cool.
Bert Minshew, I don't mind the name thing, but it's when 10 companies name the same coral after themselves and Photoshop the picture and then charge twice as much. So
right, and that's exactly right. We're all guilty to it to some extent, but it can be taken, to the ultimate extreme. And I'm not going to point any fingers, but the tenuouses these days have gotten a little out of hand, and rainbow tenuous is certainly what is kind of the hot coral of the day. But $800 for a little fragment. A lot of times, even it's kind of more than likely it's probably wild because it takes a while to cultivate them. But when you see someone buys a mariculture and selling frags for $800 or something, that's kind of taking advantage of the hobby to an extent. It's everyone's got to make money. I get it.
I have a hard time with that myself.
Tread
so all right, somebody's made a comment about your background already there, Adam. Josh Cole, Pamela Anderson in the background, even trying to get her hand on some acros. So that is the space laser suit in terms of the figure back there. And well, this is sort of related. Producer Reef, when are you going to have that laser lemon again?
The laser melon. It's funny that gets said. I'm assuming you're talking about laser melon. I've got it. It's in stock right now. It's on the site right now. I've got a rack. I got a roll of frags cut and ready. So super popular coral. Again, blue light special. On the site you can see, and I haven't done this with all my corals, but especially the
and
ones
I'm rolling
that
the video
look
of your
drastically different.
I'm rolling the
blue
video
light.
of your raceways. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
so we could talk and look at that at the same time.
Excellent. Oh, and for the record, this background defaulted when Keith called me, and he insisted that I keep it on there. So for what it's worth, otherwise you'd be looking at like an old dehumidifier and some like pictures on my wall. Anyway, but thanks. So I guess it's kind of jazzes it up a little bit. That would be Space Laser Girl or something. That was a flyer I made back in the fall for my Laser Day sale that went on over at Reef. But anyway, lost my train of thought. We were talking about something. I don't remember where.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. So we're watching video right now of your raceways, and the last time we spoke, Adam, on the live stream, it was November of 2020. So I don't know, man. It looks like you've got more corals in the raceways than the last time we spoke. Have you made any changes to your systems since the last time we spoke? Is there any major differences in terms of equipment that you're using now, lighting, nutrient export? I know you didn't really have anything specifically that you were using for nutrient export other than, I think, protein skimmers, and that was about it. And the coral's doing a lot of the work as well.
Yeah, I'm always kind of tweaking. I mean, it seems like I'm always kind of tweaking something. I like to play musical skimmers a lot and, switch things out and around. I think the last time we talked, I was running outside air to the skimmer. I think we kind of talked about that for a little while.
Yep.
I've since taken that off, just almost do an experiment to see if anything changed. And of course, pH remained pretty much steady. And I know another thing we talked a lot about was that the heat recovery.
And I picked up one because of the conversation we had, and I love it.
Right. Yeah, it's Miracle Box. But, having run that, I don't think the need for the outside air didn't seem like I needed after that. So, one thing I've dedicated, what I'm kind of doing is I'm compressing mother colony tanks, and kind of clustering those, and I'm opening up. I don't know if even I had all the raceways full. I think there was still one tank that that wasn't didn't even have water at that point last time we talked. And for the record, the tanks are about 48 inches by 11 foot, maybe about 12 inches is high. 12 inches high, and I've got 6 of them up there. So as of now, 3 of them are fully dedicated to frags. 3 of them were dedicated. I had mother colonies under halide, LED, and T5, as I have listed on the site. But as I said, I'm slowly compressing. What you can see now actually is my halide tank, and I've added some LEDs on the outside of it too, just to fill in some of the shadier gaps, and so I could cram more corals into the sides, giving me a whole nother raceway. If you look at this on this video, the 2 tanks on the right that you couldn't see are going to be eventually going to be frag tanks as well. So I've kind of taken down colonies and in place of frag, essentially, just so I can have more frags.
My simple reef, Adam, I'm still waiting on my fairy food frag, and that's the $1 million frag, right?
Yeah, I hear about that a lot. It's a joke. What's funny? I look at that and the picture itself like kind of comes from a time before blue lights at all, and this is just something I've kind of been pondering. And it's really not even that impressive. Like by today's standards, like some of these rainbow tenuouses really blow it out of the water. But I can appreciate that the picture is from maybe 2012, 2013, a time when blue lights really weren't nearly as prominent. Yeah. I don't even know if LEDs had just kind of barely hit the scene. So it was in back then I really I kind of prided myself on as accurately unembellished photos as I could. It still turned out very cool. But it's a joke, obviously. I'm not going to sell any coral for $1 million. Do I even have any more? Who knows? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the big question. I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no, but it's kind of interesting to me to look at some of these pictures that people are kind of crazy about, and by today's standards, like don't really like from a photographic sense are kind of unflattering. Yeah. I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say, or almost to the extent that people. If you got into the hobby within the last 5 years, like you didn't experience like the before of that. There's no element of like, oh, what does it look like under daylight? Like that's not a thing because that's it in the last like 5 years. Like it's kind of been blue light, it's blue light special all around the board. In fact, that's what I was talking about when we were talking about that laser melon, how I take, you can take a coral. I'm trying to represent how they look under daylights too. And most of those tenues just look terrible.
Right.
I mean, we can all agree, laser melon especially looks awesome under blue. Looks pretty average to like, in fact, I had the coral a long time before I really even gave it, I didn't even care about it. And all of a sudden, blue lights came around and it was like, oh,
yeah,
impressive.
I don't get the whole blue light thing. I'm a tried and true metal halide guy, but I have, I think since we last spoke, I don't know if I told you, I set up a new peninsula.
So are you still running halides now?
I am on my 187-gallon system, but on my new 225-gallon peninsula, I do have LEDs, the GHL Mitras LEDs, and I'm digging them, man. I like them a lot. I'm getting some good colors and growth under them.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. I go back and forth, but at the end of the day, you can't. I mean, LEDs work now. I mean, they really do, and there's little trade-offs, with all three of them, but. I'm sure. I know we talked about this a little bit last time too, but I've got about 9 Iwasakis left, and I've been getting about 2, maybe 3 years out of the ball. I'm running them like pretty much till they burn out, and so I figure I've got at least 3, maybe 6 years worth of like those halides left, and when I'm out of Iwasakis, I will probably switch over and and be done with halides at that point. Still a ways off.
When you get to the onto the brink there. So a couple of shout outs. Thank you, Rob Upstate New York, for that super chat. The comment is keep up these shows. I thank you very much for that. And my Simple Reef, thank you so much for the super chat. Tell Adam Gio from Key West says hi.
Hey man, how's it going?
So Josh Cole made the comment, but I think we already talked the fact that you do have some halides. The question was, have you converted to all LEDs? You have a lot of the reef breeders, but you not totally yet, right?
No, I'm still running all 3. I've got a T5 tank, and my whole backup system is T5. Even I've got kind of a secondary backup system, not nearly as big, but. No, I've got the one main raceway that you could see in the video was the tank with all the live rock. That's lit by 4 250 Iwasakis, and I said I kind of added the reef breeder LEDs on the side, but ultimately that's been a primary halide tank, since I set the whole system up, back in like 2016.
All right, so I still want to talk about lighting, but I got a couple of coral specific questions for you that I want to get in here. One from me and one from Bert Minshew. Cool. My question is, so we were talking about the name game, and I've been in this hobby for a very long time, and you have as well, and so I'm more into the classic SPS in terms of the names. I love the Oregon Blue Tort, I love the Tyree Purple Monster, I love the Tyree Pink Lemonade and all that stuff. So I kind of like gravitate to those names, and I have a hard time grasping some of the new stuff. But so given all of the I don't want to call them like old school coral names out there, but given what in terms of what's out there in terms of those named corals that have been around for a long time, with your collection. What are you missing that you would really want to add to your collection? Or is there anything that's missing from that collection that you would love to have?
Oh, from the good old
days? Or just even or in general, yeah.
Oh, well, it's funny because I was just talking to someone about this just this past week. But there are many corals that I wish I still had from back in the day. I'm sure any of us that have been around, kind of doing this, hit the 10-year, 15-year mark. I don't know really what happened to them all. I'm thinking about it. Like some guy, I was asked about that just this last week, and kind of asked about what legacy corals I have, and I had to really think, and not many anymore. I can think of a couple like the shade, some old Atlantis pieces, and some old a lot of Montes, a lot of the Tyree Montes, but I had an old one, the old ORA German Blue Polyp was a classic piece, and I think like. I got that up at the Rhinelander facility back in we took a trip up there back in 2007, I think, and that was right around the time I started selling on Reef Central. Like selling frags and this sort of thing. And within a year or two, I think I might, because I think Kevin might have lost his. I think that at one point I was the primary like supplier of the ORA German blue polyp, and like tons of people had it and that sort of thing. And I think we all kind of lost them at the same time, because I've had a lot of people ask me. I guess it's been a while now, but that was one that people kind of remembered. And you know, it was a green coral with blue polyps, but it kind of had a special place in my heart, I think. But you know, the thing is, like, I've never stopped collecting. I mean, I'm kind of in a constant like state of hyper collecting, and you know, whatever the sources may be, like wild Indos or you know, Australian stuff, or even just trades from my friends. Like the collecting hasn't slowed down at all. So like reminiscing about pieces that I don't have anymore versus like what's coming in and kind of what's in store. Actually, I'll let you know a little secret. There's quite a bit of, I didn't have it in my heart to like make a gallery or best of section on the site, because a lot of stuff I know is out there and I can get it back, but there's quite a few pieces that I don't have anymore that are gone. I mean, like I know some friends I could probably get backups, but if I took them all off the site, it might be a little depressing. So most of them are still on there. And like I said, if I know they're gone for good, maybe I'll take it off. And there's a few 3D spec, that's one. And, there's a couple that I'll never get back, but, tough question. I mean, there's a million pieces that I wish I had back for sure. But at the same time, like, as I continue to collect, it's just, and you know what, divers and whoever like does the actual collecting have really figured out what people like. I mean, like back in the day, I think they were collecting like things that were big.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't really specific to, any sort of like what people are interested or looking for. But that has changed tremendously, of course, with like Facebook and, the Bali guys can look and see what, the people in America want and going to spend, tons of money on, and then they can go and they can get it, or, you know what I mean? Like they're very much aware of what people want. And I think it's actually a good thing for the hobby, because it's like it's amazing stuff is happening. I mean, they're finding amazing corals. I mean, like a lot of spicosas these days, I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, but, like the people who are collecting them have kind of wised up.
Yeah.
And in turn, us, the hobbyists, are reaping the benefits of that.
So, all right, you got another great comment about your background, YouTube Reefer, awesome background, Adam. So, see, you took my advice there, Adam, and it's paying off. It's paying off in spades.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Another thing I added to the site was I started a little page with the new upgrade selling prints, and this is something I kind of had on the back burner for years. And my mom had printed up a couple, just for like a Christmas present for me a long time ago. And so I took some of my best pictures, or some of the ones that I like the most, and have offered them as like a print. It's actually it's a battle prints. Anyway, you can buy this.
All right.
You can buy that. It's called Laser Girl, and it's on the site. I don't know, $100 or something.
I might have to add it to my next order.
Yeah, I've got one upstairs. Actually, it's upstairs in the fish room, so right next to my little owl thing. But along with a lot of other, a little bit nicer, going through all my pictures, like any one that kind of stands out as something that like seems worthy, I've turned into a print, and you can buy them and put them on your wall. But Laser Girl.
Cores for You is asking a question, and I was about to ask you this question, but there's a lot of buzz around out there today in terms of the Rainbow Splice coral, and so Cores for You is wondering what's Adam's thought on all the new Splice acros. Is that do you have the Rainbow Splice? You growing that out? Do you want that?
I don't. I'm familiar with it. I don't have it. That's like, it's a reef wrap piece, right? Kind of like pink with some, kind of like a grafted piece of sort. I mean, there's always going to be like the one that everybody wants, and at this moment in time, I guess that's it, but it's hard, it's hard to propagate specific pieces like that. And I mean, like from a business perspective, I guess maybe that is why people charge a fortune for stuff like that, because you only have a very limited amount of it, in those regards. But I've never been one to like hop on, I don't have a Walt Disney. I don't. I guess
now it's like a classic, so you should probably get one of those.
Right, and that's usually how it goes for me. I mean, I'll get them in trade. I don't really seek out stuff as much as I used to. That's for sure. Most of the stuff comes from my buddy Tim. In Ohio,
Tim Harmon,
who has done that.
Yeah, Tim Harmon, who we've talked.
Buddy.
Yeah, we've had him on the show. I just got
excellent. Actually, yeah, that's funny. I think on the last one, and I'm going to bust you here, but on the last one, you showed some videos, and it was actually of Tim's. No, I'm sorry, that was with Carlos. Carlos at Coral. Like he showed some system pictures, and it was Tim.
Oh, really?
Like while we were doing the interview, yeah, and I just kind of rolled with it, but
oops.
But Tim knew anyway. I guess I've never really jumped on the latest and greatest, but if I can get them, I'll take anything I can get. I mean, no doubt about it. So, but I probably won't be paying $800 for a regular
that's kind of hard for me to swallow.
Although I did. Speaking of Tim, I guess one more thing. I did just get a jaw dropper, Reef jaw dropper. So I did get a piece of that from Tim, and only about 5 years late, but I did get a piece of that, which is very cool. I mean, there was a time where I didn't really buy into it, but it's cool.
Yeah, I picked up the home wrecker a couple of years ago, so I was a little late to the party as well. But it's actually, I think it's worthy of it, the hype, because I have it under halides and also my LEDs, but even like under daylight, man, the thing just is rocking.
Looking good. I've had 3 of them, and
really?
I killed them all. I couldn't keep it alive. I don't know why. I mean, I think a couple of times it might have been a system fluke, but from Tim again, I got 3 of him on 3 different occasions, and I mean that was a long time ago now, even. But I don't have it. I don't have a message.
So,
but again, another good example of kind of a flavor of the day, though. I mean, that's certainly how it goes about.
Getting to Bert's question, what is your favorite tenuous, Adam, that you have ever seen or would like to have one day? I guess kind of back to that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I've seen a lot of them now, and there's so many different variations that are super similar that I don't know. Like maybe if I'm just going to kind of cop out, like just a classic super solid blue, I guess I could really appreciate that. But I mean, like it's almost like zoanthids with tenuouses. I mean, like a million different zoanthids that, like, this one just has a little different stripe on one of the skirt things. The rainbow tenuouses seem to be just about in line like that. I mean, like they're very similar. Lots of them I've seen that are pretty close, but not exactly the same. To pick just one without just saying rainbow tenuous, I don't know. I don't know if I could really pick it out. Good question though, but man, I'll have to think a little bit harder about that, I guess.
I actually have the Tyree Superman tenuous, which I had that a long time ago, and I lost a piece, but then I picked up another piece from Tim, and that's a pretty cool piece. The blue one,
blue one.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, that's a really cool one.
Totally. Like just a classic, like super, super, super deep blue. In fact, I think Tim got that from me.
Oh, really?
Ago. And I don't have any. We've been trading for years, but I mean, that's a good example. Something a little more like, not, it's funny to say like run of the mill, but rainbow
it's
tenuous,
different.
But I mean, kind of like what I was saying, like the divers. I mean, they're onto that. So I mean, it's like that's what they're finding, that's what they're bringing in, and as like vendors, that's what's available to us.
Are you?
No complaints.
Are you finding a less demand for blue corals because people are running more blue lights in their tanks, and the blues just don't stand out in blue lit tanks? Or
that's a really good question. It's a funny thing. When most of the time, like I would get most of my feedback on like what people like in battle boxes, because it's an option that I have where I essentially pick out, if you're not familiar with it, I pick out the coral for you. You can buy different dollar values in different quantities, and I'll usually send like a blanket email like thanks for the order, so on and so forth. If you have any preferences, please let me know. And now that I think about it, blue is not picked out very often. I mean, I've got a couple of really nice blues, but I think you're right about that. I mean, that is one coral that has suffered in the blue light craze for sure. I mean, I can say.
Well, I think one of my top I think my top coral, top 2, maybe top 3 is the Oregon blue tort. There's nothing more blue than that coral. Solid blue. I mean, when you see it under full spectrum lighting, man, it just rocks. And I don't know, but that's.
Did you ever run, speaking of halides, the old Reflux 10K bulb? It was a magical bulb, and no other bulb did this. I think they marketed it as like a true 10K or something, but it did something to blues that was just amazing. And like to this day, I've never seen the same effect. Like the 12K and even like any other 10K, like no other 10K did this. And anyone who ever used, I don't know which camera I'm looking at, whoever used the old Reflux 10K knows what I'm talking about, but it would take that coral and turn it into this glowing blue, like magical thing. And almost any blues, particularly, like I'm talking about old classics like the Palmer's blue and that sort of stuff, did magical things. Maybe I would love to see if someone could chime in, anyone who had ever used the old Reflux 10K. Not the greatest balls. I mean, I'm not going to go there, but it did this magical thing to blues, specifically blue. Like didn't, flat the colors, but kind of like if you knew what I was talking about, you would definitely understand. I don't even know if you can get them anymore, but I would say like if you have are you running mogul bulbs?
Yeah,
no?
I am.
Maybe consider tracking one down just for fun, and plug it in and you can
maybe
see
one of my
about.
frag tanks.
I mean, we've turned the clock back about 15 years here, but it was amazing what it did for blue.
Okay.
Kind of like the exact opposite, like what's happening today. But anyway, I kind of went off. There, but.
All right, so a couple more questions there for you, Adam. Oh yeah, Peter T, smash that like button. Yeah, folks, just make sure you hit the like button so more people can find the stream. So, Adam, question about where you keep your nutrients at.
Great question. I mean, I guess I have this conversation with people from time to time. I am not strict when it comes to like testing and this sort of thing. I have a couple nitrate tests that, I mean, if something seems off, maybe I'll pull it out. But I get the most information I get nutrients is when I send in a Triton test. And there's a really good phosphorus and phosphate, at the very bottom of the test. And it's usually right where it needs to be. I don't even know what the numbers are. If that tells you anything, I don't even know. I guess short answer, I have no idea, but I know that I don't like to have them bare. And as far as the Triton is concerned, it's never been off the charts except for like when the system was new and that sort of thing. So, I'm definitely in the camp where little nutrients is certainly not a bad thing. And I guess it's a balance. I don't have a ton of fish, so I'm not really fighting, like nutrient buildup that I think a lot of other people with like smaller tanks might experience. But, I've always been in the like nutrients aren't our enemy camp, for many years, even back like when it was like they were our enemies, and it didn't really.
So I can't recall. You do regular water changes to kind of like help manage nutrients and skimming and.
I do. I still do. I mean, even my main system is about 1,200 gallons now. And I got a big old 300-gallon kind of trophy thing up there. And at least once a month, I try to do about a 100-gallon water change. I mean, give or take, a lot of times when I get new coral, I end up having to siphon a couple buckets where, I mean, like I kind of get like a default water, very small, but kind of more regular water changes when I get new coral, 5, 10, 15, 20 gallons at a time. And that's probably the most regular that I do, but I still like to do like a good old-fashioned 100-gallon, in the main. The backup system, which is doing wonderful, oddly enough, doesn't get nearly the attention that it should. I don't remember the last time I did a water change in the backup system, but it's doing quite well.
Well, it must be on autopilot.
But there's like one fish in there. I mean, it is kind of on autopilot. So as far as that goes, like very little, very little goes in, and not much.
Somebody asked a question in terms of, how on top of, you're monitoring your alkalinity and all that stuff. You used to have an alkalinity monitor, right? But then you took it offline because it was a pain in the ass to maintain. Or is that still the case?
Yeah, I did, but it wasn't even that much of a pain in the butt. It was a little. Yeah, maybe I got a little lazy, but yeah, I got the KH Guardian right when it came out. Like when I set up the system upstairs, that was the first thing I kind of had plugged in and online. And it was definitely, reliable. Like at no point did I think like I wasn't getting the right measurements or anything like that. I was always afraid to flush the reagent back in. They say it's reef safe and you could just flush it right back into the tank, but I was always kind of cautious about that. So I had a little reservoir for that. And it was a little high maintenance to drain that. Like every couple of days, I had to drain like the residual kind of titrator fluid or solution or whatever. Other than that, I guess I'm trying to think of why I took it down. I think I just took it down to clean it.
Never put it back up.
And I never set it back up. kind of pulled one of those, but it was just the kind of thing. And that's actually, I've kind of been thinking about putting that on the backup. It would be perfect for the backup system that is kind of an autopilot actually. But, I've gotten so used to testing just with Sallyford. I test once in the morning and once at night, and it's like such a part of my day that I could do it in my sleep. I probably do, but
you're using the Sallyford for alkalinity, and are you calcium, magnesium at all, or not rarely?
Again, I generally don't. I mean, I can't remember the last time I tested calcium or magnesium, but again, every once in a while, and I send in a Triton maybe a couple times a year, and if I ever have something that looks off or I think I got a problem, I'll send one in immediately. But generally maybe 3-4 Tritons a year at the most. That is when I get my snapshot of some of those other parameters like calcium and magnesium, and it's usually close enough to where I don't really have to. I'm not really that concerned about it as far as that goes. Alkalinity, on the other hand, extremely anal about it, and I've seen the damage that can, kind of be caused by, swings and that sort of thing. So, I would consider that to be probably one of the most important parameters to be on top of. I can't remember. I think we talked about running a reactor. I think we kind of had this conversation, but, when you are using a reactor, you're kind of getting a balanced, the effluent is balanced anyway. So if you know what your alk is, generally you have a good idea of what your calcium is anyway.
Okay, question for you in terms of the ICP tests. And I've had some guests on recently that have talked a lot about potassium. And I never really thought about potassium personally. All the years I've been keeping reef tanks, I've never been too concerned about it. I do the ICP test like a couple of, a year. And I look down the chart, and if I see something that's like yellow or red or whatever, then I get concerned. But potassium's always been kind of like a little bit below the green, like 350-ish or 360. And according to the folks that really do pay a lot of attention to potassium, they like to keep their tanks over 400 in terms of the potassium. Is that something that you're kind of tuned into a little bit when you're looking at the ICP test, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely pay attention to potassium only because I am aware of it. It was, again, probably about 10 years ago when I think Sallyford actually released the potassium. It was like a new product, potassium kit all of a sudden was available. And we all started testing potassium, of course. And there were tie-ins that, maybe higher potassium affects SPS color. I don't know exactly how scientific any of that is. I don't know that. I mean, I've added potassium. I know that Menard, really old school reefer, they had an insanely nice tank, back in the day. Like, think about some of the first Ekras I ever had came from him. Crashed his tank dosing potassium. And this is still a long time ago now, but it was the kind of thing where he added some and things started looking great, and he added a little more and things started looking better, and then he added a little more, and then everything kind of went downhill. And I guess it's kind of be careful with stuff like that. I think that to answer your question, yeah, I definitely zero in on the potassium only, when I'm looking at the Triton results. But is it something that goes any further than that for me? Not so much. I do know every once in a while I may add a few drops of Lugol's, which is like potassium, iodine. And so there may be I may be kind of indirectly adding a little bit here and there, but I've never had an issue that I could say was directly related to low or high potassium. And, after Menard's horror story, I never really started dosing it myself either. So good question. But I kind of remember when that happened, when potassium was all of a sudden a thing. And, a lot of those things I don't pay a ton of attention to it at the end of the day. If things are looking good, if it ain't broke, don't.
Yeah, no, that's been kind of like my philosophy too. But in terms of talking to a lot of folks that seem to keep a keen eye on potassium, that's kind of got me thinking in terms of keeping a more closer eye on that stuff. What salt do you use?
That's a good question, Ed. I'm gonna just back up for one second though. One thing that just one other parameter that I have paid a little more attention to is iodine, oddly enough. And it's probably the only thing that I do add, the only bottled product that I do add based on Triton kits that I do get back where it shows literally zero iodine. I don't know if
that happens to me all the time.
But I can say so I don't know if it's skimmer or something. I know that when I add it and get another test from Triton, it shows up on the test. It's when I'm adding it, it's going somewhere, but I don't know where. But I will say that way more so than potassium. Like I've noticed that if my iodine is 0, when I boost it, things seem a little happier. I mean, it's totally generically way to say, but like 0 iodine versus any sort of potassium fluctuation would maybe something I would tell people to look at a little bit closer. Anyway, I'm sorry. Can you repeat
Yes, the question was the salt brand you're using.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and the reason I kind of hesitated, I've been using Tropic Marin for, going on, 15, might be 20 years now, but just recently, I mean, I don't know if there's a thread on Reef to Reef about some of the Tropic Marin. I mean, I haven't delved too far into it, but the gist seems like there may be some Tropic Marin that there may be some issues with. And again, I don't know. It's kind of hearsay, and some people have some problems with it. Oddly enough, I've been waiting for the call. I usually get about a pallet at a time, and I use the marine mix, not the tropic or not the pro mix. I've been waiting for the call from my supplier to get another pallet, and I haven't gotten it yet. So I've actually had to buy, just from Bulk Reef to get, by the box. And I did get the turkey, I've got it. And I've actually ended up using some this before any of that came to light back in early fall. Didn't have any issues with the tank. So, I mean, I don't really know. Again, it seems I'm not very educated on what's going on with all this, but it seems, and I don't want to start, bad mouthing Tropic Marin. It seems like maybe something quirky going on with a batch or two. It hasn't stopped me from using it, and when I get the call, I'm sure I'll get another pallet. But as of right now, at this particular moment in time, there seems to be something going on. And Lou is involved with the thread. He's like the head of distribution or something in America. So it's something that's being looked at and addressed, but I don't know. I'm sure some people may chime in. The thread was kind of going wild there for a little while, but short answer, Tropic Marin Classic. And I don't see any reason to change unless, I'm really convinced that there's a serious problem that they have.
Yeah, I had Mark Levinson on last week's show, and he actually had a tank crash due to a major deficiency in potassium in the salt mix. And I for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the salt mix. So maybe if somebody remembers that, they could chime in terms of that salt mix.
I think I saw his video diary when that was kind of going on. It was real sad. I mean, this was kind of back maybe 6 months ago, I think. But I remember tuning in a little bit, and it was like, I mean, I know the feeling because I've been there myself. But heartbreaking, just white colonies and tissue. So that turned out to be, and he didn't know what it was though. Actually, that was the last time I had tuned in. It was the salt. Though,
and the scary thing to me is that. You really don't know it, because it's a salt in terms of what's going on with the systems. But what scares me is you talk about a backup system. I've got 2 systems, but if you're using the same salt for everything, and you're doing water changes on both systems, and the salt is there's a problem with the salt, then you got a problem with both systems. So that's sort of a scary thing to me.
Right.
And it makes me think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. In fact, one of the reasons why I really like having the backup system is because it gives you kind of a barometer for any of those kind of global issues that could be and the thing is, salt is low hanging fruit. When things go wrong, salt is the first thing people try to blame. And I think way more often than not, it's not the salt. But every once in a while, it is the salt, and it's unfortunate. But having a backup system gives you. I mean, it's the kind of thing where if it's happening in both systems, then it's more of a global thing, like salt. Or something that you could it's a little easier to troubleshoot when you've got 2 things you can kind of relate to more of a global quirk. But tough thing. I mean, to think that you've got all this invested in, and I mean, you just have to trust that the salt is good. There's no other. I mean, you can't really measure it against anything else. You just we kind of put our blind faith in hopes that there's never going to be a problem with the salt, and unfortunately it does seem like there are.
Thanks Valhalla for chiming in. Levinson used Aqua Vitro brand salt, so that's what happened.
Aqua Vitro. Okay, I'm not even
Vitrio. Is that how it's pronounced?
Aqua Vitro.
Yeah.
That sucks. I mean, that's raw. I mean, I remember seeing those videos. He had that video diary, and it's just scratching my head. Like I said, I've been there. It is the worst that you can, the worst thing a reefer can go through. And I mean, there's worse things in life, don't get me wrong. But like when you have things like that happening and you don't know why, it is the worst. I mean, by all means, like, you know, I hear from a lot of people that have equipment failures and, you know, things like that. And I always tell them, like, listen, be thankful. I mean, this sucks and I feel bad for you, but be thankful that you know what it was, because when you don't know and months go by and like stuff dying and you can't figure it out, it is just draining. I mean, it's absolutely deflating, and it's like the worst kind of thing you can really deal with versus like, oh, my thing happened and I know what the cause is. Like a bunch of stuff died, but at least I know, you know, it was because of this or that. You know, scratching your head. I did a thread about that, like, or I did a write about that quite a few years back, but it was something about, I don't remember the title, but kind of explaining my psychosis, my personal psychosis that I go through, like when I'm dealing with that kind of stuff.
I hear you.
And it sucks. I mean,
it is debilitating. Hey, shout out to Stories Reef Rashid. Thank you, man, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Yeah, folks, keep putting your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them. I have one back here, Adam, that was asked a while back by Clem, and it's related to pH. So we were talking about the heat exchange unit or air exchange unit and all that stuff, but the question is, you know, what are your thoughts in terms of the importance of pH in terms of for SBS?
Good question. And a lot more. I put a lot more, you know, credence into pH than I used to, for sure. Like it was a parameter that I just kind of didn't pay attention to at all until one day I did. And you know, a long time my tanks ran low, you know, especially because, you know, when you run a reactor, it's going to run on the low side. But I mean, I was like 7.6 pretty much, you know, maybe 7.8, you know, at midday, you know, never getting even close to in the 8s. And I think my system suffered for years. Like it never, I mean, my growth was slow and things like that. Since I got the you know, I've focused a lot on ventilation. We talked about this a lot in the last one, but you know, I focused a lot on ventilation, and it has made a huge difference. And I will say noticeably, growth is better. When your pH is higher, growth is better. Acros like higher pH, that I'm absolutely sure of. And you know, if you think, you know, as a hobbyist, you're experiencing slow growth or you know, anything along those lines and your pH is low, that would be the first thing that I would address for sure. And, you know, there's a couple different ways to do it, but fresh air, man, like those heat recovery ventilators, you know, maybe not an option for everyone in like a residential, you know, in a house, but any way you can introduce fresh air into the room will benefit the pH. Like I am convinced of that.
Yeah, when we're talking about it on the show, you put a bug in my head. And, you know, I actually went ahead and purchased one of those commercial grade air exchange units. And man, that was like one of the best things I had ever done, because, you know, I think I mentioned to you during the show, I have all my tanks in a basement, finished basement here in Vermont. And when it's cold out in the wintertime, the windows are shut tight. So, you know, running calcium reactors and all that stuff, pH gets depressed. And, you know, the air exchange unit basically boosted my pH by like 0.2 pH points, which is a big jump. You know, that's significant.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. And I would imagine that if you had any issues with humidity, it's probably not, you're probably not experiencing that either. As far as that, I mean, they're miracle boxes for humidity as well. Like you can't see it, but if you could see the actual background behind me is my big high E dry, you know, big super fancy dehumidifier that I realized that I don't need anymore upstairs at all. And I finally took it down just about a month ago. I was kind of waiting for some really cold weather just to see if I could, you know, if I would need it at all. Turns out I don't. So between that and a little bit of the furnace upgrade, I don't need my dehumidifier at all for what it's worth. So as far as that goes, there's so many benefits to those HRVs. I can go on and on, but I'm glad I know at the last, like kind of the last like section of our talk, we kind of started going on about those. And even when the actual chat ended, we continued the conversation quite a bit. And I'm glad, like pretty much that's how it goes for anyone that I've kind of had the conversation with. Like it definitely is like this little miracle box. I mean, like for reefers and the things that we need, it facilitates that really well, you know, in a kind of wonderful way, and very efficient as well compared to like a dehumidifier that just sucks tons of electricity.
The only like, you know, negative I see in the wintertime, you know, here is like when it's freezing cold out, you know, that cold air is getting exchanged, you know, through the room, so it does, you know, kind of cool things down a little bit. So I have to be careful about that, but yeah, I tried a whole bunch of things. I tried running an airline tube from the skimmer intake, you know, outside. That didn't work. I tried a whole bunch of different things, and nothing really worked like the air exchange unit. But there are things I guess you can do in terms of like dripping the calcium reactor effluent into the skimmer pump to help increase the aeration and help degas the CO2. That's definitely one thing that I also do that I think has helped.
Right. And at least in kind of a fast-moving area. I mean, just not a stagnant area, get it kind of churned up. Yeah, for sure. I mean, between that, and I did run. I think to be effective with the outside air, you really need a massive skimmer. I mean, I think like with a typical skimmer on a typical system, it's just not enough to really affect it significantly. I mean, you may see a tiny uptick, but Kalkwasser, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it either, but very effective at elevating pH. I'm not a huge fan, like the functionality of it. I think it can run into problems, because it's not a very consistent way of supplementing. But if you had it, I mean, I guess you could put it on a pump. I'm sure there's ways that it could be done that would help. If you had like
I had Chris Meckley on. I don't know if you know Chris from ACI Aquaculture. He's a big coral wholesaler down in Florida, and he turned me on to this method that he has been using for Kalkwasser, and I've been implementing it since the summertime, I think. So basically, what it is it's a 30-gallon drum filled with RODI water, and I've got Kalkwasser in it, and I do not stir it. I just let it let the sediment settle. And I have it. I have my dosing pumps hooked up to it, and it's dosing both tanks. So it's not tied into the RODI line. It's dosing as much as I can, and then the auto top off is kind of kicking in to make sure that everything is at the level that it needs to be topped off at. But so it's great. And in a couple of weeks that drum drains, and I basically put some more Kalkwasser in there and fill it up with the RODI water. That mixes it up, when I top it off with the RODI water.
Right.
And then I keep the lid shut, so I don't really get a lot of air going in that thing. And it's been, that's definitely helped as well. So it's not something where I have to worry about, I think, an overdosing of Kalkwasser, the slurry getting in there. I know there's a whole bunch of people out there, and we talked.
It's pretty forgiving. It's pretty forgiving as far as that goes. Well, my question to you on that: do you drip more at night, or do you do anything like that? Like, do you fluctuate it?
I only dose on the opposite of the light cycle, so at night. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's perfect. If anything, I mean, that would serve to keep it. I mean, to almost keep it steady. I mean, if you could avoid, I think corals get kind of used to, but if you could actually avoid like the daily swing and keep even at night to keep it steady, I mean, that's kind of having your cake.
Right. Yeah.
Not bad. I mean, I've kind of experimented with that in the past, but never really, committed
my
fully
pH is basically like an 8.1 low in the, overnight, and then 8.4 in one system, 8.3 in the other system. So it definitely helps in terms of like the air exchange unit, the Kalkwasser, and dripping the effluent into the skimmer pump. I think is definitely helped me. But
so the question of the day then: have you noticed any positive effects of coral then? I mean, anything you could specifically say, absolutely, this has been, cause and effect?
I think colors and growth have definitely been improved. Certainly when I added in the air exchange unit, I noticed a lot more growth on the acros, which is what I was hoping for. But it just seems like all the corals are really healthy and the system's really good. And you kind of like just want to knock on wood and keep going on that roll. But, this is reef keeping.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling well. Right. When things are going good, man, it is wonderful. There's no doubt about that. But so if anything, those those heat recovery ventilators is something that people should consider. I mean, if they think they're having any kind of problems, actually, it's not a bad thing to have in your house. I mean, period. It's a good way to introduce fresh air into your house. Just to exist. But that would be definitely. It's kind of like the magic bullet for a lot of little kind of remedial tank issues like that. I have found.
So Stories Reef is asking another water testing question. Do you guys test your new salt water with Trident before adding to your tank? So I guess there's Trident out there that measures a bunch of different parameters, and I can answer that question first for me. You know, the only thing that
Oh, the tri the
yeah, I think
Neptune?
that's what he's talking
like
about that one. You know, for me, I always just test magnesium in my when I mix up new salt, and you know, now I might start testing potassium. I don't know, but that's it for me. You know, and right? Salinity. I always make sure that I didn't like goof and forget to put the salt mix.
Right, that's about it for me.
So that's about the same for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every once in a while I may test alkalinity. I mean, just if I'm feeling like it. But you know, the salt mix. That's one thing I can say also about Tropic Merit. It's super consistent from batch to batch. So you know, it's the same as it was 10 years ago. But no, I've got the little Milwaukee digital you know, refractometer, and that's about all I've ever tested. You know, generally of the salt mix. So you know, again, knock on wood, but you know, I guess again, kind of to come full circle, I kind of put my faith in the fact that the salt is going to be what it was. You know, last time.
Me too. So, I forgot to ask you this question. Somebody was asking what actually you do keep your DKH at. What range do you like it at?
You know, I've been pretty rock solid around 8.5. I mean, that seems to be the magic number for me. You know, there's times where it dips a little bit, and there's times where it goes above. But you know, I'd say 90% of the time I test, I'm right about 8.5. You know. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, elk is a little bit arbitrary, you know, I mean, that's what works for me. You know, the key is stability for sure. I mean, that's the one that I would always say, you know, that's the one you want to keep an eye on, and pick a number, and you know, if stuff looks good, then that's just settle.
Let me ask you another question. I've had a lot of conversations with folks about dosing bacteria, and that's actually something that I've been experimenting with since the summertime. Is that something you've ever done in terms of your systems, other than when you've started it? Have you ever dosed bacteria on established systems?
I never have. I mean, I actually never have once. I know that's. I mean, I'm kind of familiar with it, but. No, I mean, I'm guessing, like, for starters, just to like get the cycle going. I mean, is that kind of the initial idea behind that, or is it actually? Well, are we talking about like kind of carpet dosing?
No, I think well, my theory is I've talked about this before. Is that reef keeping seems to have gotten a lot harder, I guess, if you let it get harder. And one of my theories is that one of my theories is that the equipment these days is so much more efficient than it was years ago. Like the skimmers are so powerful, the filtration devices are you know, just super, like pulling, you know, you got roller mats out there and all that stuff, and it's just stripping the water. Everything's just getting stripped out. And you know, so is good bacteria getting stripped out along with all that stuff? I don't know. You know, it's
that's a good
it's kind of hard to say. You know, let's see if there's any proof out there. So, but you know, a lot of folks out there are dosing bacteria to help keep that good guy bacteria population healthy. And there's bacteria testing. Is
that something?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Is that something that people are dosing regularly then? Like that's part of like a regimen?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all. Yeah. But so where does the bacteria come from? I mean, this is like a product you can
bottled bacteria.
Just buy then,
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a new one for me, for sure.
You know, I actually kind of started doing it to help control nutrients because I had been using Chaeto as a form of nutrient export on my systems, and you know, every once in a while my Chaeto would crash, and every once in a while, you know, you know, it's kind of a pain in the ass to keep you know, stuff maintained and all that sort of thing. But you know, the other thing that so dosing bacteria can kind of help in terms of that nutrient export type of thing, because the bacteria that you're dosing are helping to kind of you know, they're eating the stuff that the nitrates and the phosphates you know, would be using. So they're not so they're kind of like out competing that food source. So that's helped me in terms of dosing bacteria. And you know, so another side benefit is it could kind of help in terms of problematic algae. It could potentially help with some green algae and cyano and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of different theories as to why it could be good to dose bacteria. And you know, so I have been experimenting since the summer, and I took my Chaeto offline, and I haven't put it back online since, and I've been seeing some good results. And some problematic algae has subsided a little bit. So it seems to have worked for me. But now you've got like a service out there, Aquabiomics, that actually can test your good guy versus bad guy bacteria.
Right. Yeah, I was going to bring that up. In fact, he did a free test for me way back. I don't know if it was right when he started, but it was kind of right when he was hitting the scene. Abe, I think his name was, and super nice guy. I would say I would definitely speak highly of him. But I had one done. It was very cool, in fact. And there's a thread about it. I think he posted a thread about what he found, and ultimately, I think my system, checked out as good. Like there was nothing. I still don't fully understand, everything about it, but. But I guess my water checked out good. Everything was all right. But like on the microbial level, that is, like no pathogens. Although I will say one benefit to that is because I get asked a lot, like, do I have any fish? And I'm kind of going to change gears, but do I have any fish? And mostly, I presume it's to establish if I have if there's any concern that I might have some fish diseases that could get passed on, in coral. And I usually direct people to that thread just to say, well, I haven't had a fish in years and years, but I had this test done and it kind of came back clean. And, it's about the best I can offer anyone who's concerned about getting coral from a system that may have a fish that may have something that could be transmitted, by way of the water or whatever. But interesting. Yeah, that was
Aquabiomics. Yeah, Dr. Eli, what's his last name? I can't remember off the top of my head, but Eli's his first name. Meyer, Dr. Eli Meyer.
Oh, yeah. Eli, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yep. I'm sorry, that's right. Yeah, in fact, he was developing a dip, I think, and I still have it. He sent me some samples of like a dip that was supposed to be, I confess I never used it, but it was like he was developing some dips for some very specific things like that as well. And I kind of feel bad that I still have it. Maybe I should see if it's still good, but I think he was onto something. With the whole thing was very interesting to me, and just to kind of have a snapshot of that level of what's going on in your tank, it was definitely interesting. And then of course taking that data and developing kind of medicines or whatever, seems like kind of like the new frontier for me at the time. I was totally blown away. Like he kind of approached me and just kind of told kind of gave me the spiel, and I was just extremely impressed.
It's crazy how much like new information we have today at our fingertips versus years and years ago, and that is the scary part, because you could really overthink things, and you could really chase some numbers, and so that's why I think that's another reason why I think things have just gotten more complicated in terms of reef keeping today. And I think that sometimes just going back to the basics and just trying to like block out all that noise is a good thing. But if you're having issues with the tank, I guess having those type of tools are good to have. All right, man, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have. Yeah, I was just gonna say to have machines that actually test, alkalinity and calcium and magnesium at once. That's like something we would have dreamed about, 10, 15 years ago. And we have that today. So in some ways, the trade-off is that we do have these devices that make life easier, but there's still all these other things involved and little kind of caveats and things like that you can explore that will complicate it all the more.
All right. Another person is commenting on the picture behind you. Adam, on my next coral order, My Simple Reef says, I want the photo in the back. I don't know, man. You're gonna have to start printing up. You're gonna have to start printing up a few of those.
You can go on the site. I actually have a wallpaper version of it, just if anyone wants that. But you can go on the site. You can buy that, and you can hang this. You can hang that on your wall. It is available. It's listed as Laser Girl in the Battle Print section. Maybe buy one, maybe get one free. I don't know. Maybe I'll catch a deal. Something like that. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The battle prints have not taken off. I'm not gonna retire selling these things, but I am trying to incorporate a little bit more, like not just pictures of coral, kind of goofy things, like that.
All right, we got another lighting question for you from Variant. Curious how Adam likes his coral carriers compared to his reef breeder units.
Good question. I finally got around to hooking up the controller because I was running one for a long time and I didn't hook up the controller. So I finally hooked up the controller, and it's kind of on par with the T5s. It's in a tank that has the T5, and it's like a small section of a tank that is primarily lit with T5, and I mean, it's kind of like the LED version of a T5. I mean, between coverage and just kind of even functionality. I really like I like the fact that the reef feeders are nice and long, and I can cover way more area, with the 50-inch light. I don't know that I would see myself buying like 50 coral carrots just because of, for one, I mean, they're heavy, but I don't know if that's, I mean, they're like kind of strangely heavy, which is good. I mean, I'm sure it's good, but I mean, I like the light. My coral likes the light. I'm probably not going to invest in a bunch of those just because. Actually, that was the one thing I asked Carlos. I said, any plans to make like a long version? Could they make a triple size? And he said no. So, would I put one over a display? I totally might. I mean, that's something I would consider in a heartbeat. It was a much cooler light once I hooked up the controller. I'll say that, because I just had it on off for about a year or two, and I finally hooked up that controller and got all that going. And it's actually the controls are very cool. Like, it's not like the intensity stays the same as you switch between spectrums. It's not like when you turn the white down that the intensity goes down. Somehow it manages to kind of balance the two and keeps the intensity at this, this, like, I'm sure there's a fancy word for that, but like as you switch away from the light, from the blue, like it keeps the same intensity, and somehow it like maintains that. Like you don't sacrifice par if you want it blue or whiter, I think
you are.
But I mean, that's something that you don't. You know what I mean? Like that's not, you don't get that with the reef feeders or anything that any other fixture that I know of. But
is your bread and butter in terms of growing and coloring up corals?
Right. The question I get asked all the time. I mean, without question. I mean, I'm still running Iwasaki's, on old magnetic ballasts even, and I mean, without question, like the coral under those are growing the fastest. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Is it like rapidly fast to where it blows everything else away? Definitely not. In fact. The T5s, I mean, I run a lot of 65K bulbs in the T5s too. And it's like the $1 million question, I mean, it seems like I can go back and forth all day. I mean, without a doubt, halides will grow coral faster. I mean, like whatever they're offering, it's a little bit more than they're getting under LEDs and T5s. Maybe it's just because, I guess I always kind of equate it like punch. It seems like halides just have a little more punch.
Yeah.
But these days it's really hard to compare, because there's so many other trade-offs with that I can go back and forth all day. Do I have a favorite? I definitely don't. I mean, like I said earlier, I know when I'm out at Iwasaki's, I'm not going to buy any more halide bulbs after that. So I mean, like there's a finite, the clock is ticking for sure. And will I miss them when they're gone? Remains to be seen. but I have no intention of adding more to the system at all. I'm running 4 right now, and when the bulbs are gone,
if you were starting your own SPS tank in your house as like a display tank, and you wanted to have a kick-ass SPS collection, which you already have, but if you wanted to like have a gorgeous display tank, what lighting would you put over that tank? And you could pick a combination if you wanted to.
It's hard to beat. LED T5 combination is hard to beat these days. I would say like you get like the coverage you get with a T5, you don't get with any other like point source like halides or LED. So there's something that is lost if you don't have T5s as well. I mean, I don't know if you've ever run T5s, but
just with my halides,
light gets to area. Well, but more so than halides, light gets to areas that it doesn't get to with halides or T5s. So I mean, that alone is a good enough excuse. And my corals love T5s. Don't get me wrong; they absolutely love them. But I think like if I was going to set up another display, I would probably do like an LED halide or LED T5 combo.
Interesting. Question for you that I think we covered during our last chat, but maybe something's changed. Do you feed your SPS with aminos or coral-specific foods?
No, again, it's one of those things like I don't, I've dabbled with, different, types of food like reefroids and aminos kind of a while ago now, but no, I mean, I've never really committed to any of it. Like I said, every once in a while, I might throw some reefroids in the backup system because there's no fish and it seems like nutrients are, that might be my only excuse to maybe do something like that. But, I never had any like visible, I couldn't like say, oh, absolutely. When I gave them that, like they responded well. And again, I guess I just never committed to it, maybe long-term enough to see the effects, or I just was being lazy and I didn't, continue. I don't have, I like things in bottles, that sort of thing, is not really part of my regimen at all. Like, except for what I said earlier, I do dose iodine pretty regularly because I know that it's going somewhere. But, kind of like the old adage, if you can't test for it, then, you probably shouldn't add it, or at least be kind of maybe leery of it.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience with aminos and coral food. I've kind of dabbled with it, and sometimes I've had cyano break out, and I haven't really noticed any big differences and stuff. So I make my own homemade fish food, and I'll put some reefroids into that, into the food processor when I do that, just to kind of have it in there. I don't know if it makes any difference, but it's a nice little.
I'm with you, and well, there's been times where I've added reefroids, and I know Phil's actually a really good friend of mine. I'm not going to in any way say I know that reefroids is very effective, but I can't say that. I mean, I've had a flashlight in the dark looking at polyps, after I put a bunch of reefroids in the tank, and my acros were not interested in it at all. I mean, that's not just from what I could see. Like, I just wanted so badly to see one just snatch one up and kind of suck it in, and it didn't happen. I mean, to this day, I don't know that they ever actually physically ate the little particles, but other things. I mean, but here's the thought: other things do that could then in turn feed the acros in some form or another. So I'm not going to say it's bad, but just something that I never.
I believe in fish poop is a good thing for coral food.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I do put a lot of fish food in my tank. I mean, that's one thing that they get plenty of, and I don't have, like I said, a ton of fish. Like, for my water volume, it's pretty low. But I'm with you, man. That's kind of essentially, if that's what my corals get.
So Scotty Damron has a question about your raceways, and I'm not sure if he asked this question earlier, but I think somebody commented that they look like they were acrylic, but they're glass, right? Those tanks are.
They are. Yeah, they are glass, and kind of a long story. I had, in my backup, my system. I'll give you the condensed version, but my old system in the basement was all glass, and when I was kind of planning the new addition, I was kind of just glass is working for me now, so I'm going to go with glass. In hindsight, glass is super heavy. It scares me up there because it's heavy and it's vulnerable. And, if I had to do over again, I would have had PVC tanks made, or just gone with some troughs. But it looks cool, but, it is glass. And at any given moment,
it could give way.
Something could happen. Right. I mean, it's kind of, it's like a constant for me. And there's a whole nother, maybe next time if you have me on, I can tell you all about how I had some structural issues, in my first or second year.
Really? After the tanks were filled with water, there was an issue in terms of things were getting a little.
Yeah, it was quirky, and ultimately I had a floor plan, and I gave it to the trough company, and I said, "This is what's up there. Sell me what I need." And I think it was under engineered, and we can kind of leave that as a cliffhanger for the next one. But it was dealt with, but boy, it was an insane problem, and this was probably my second year up there.
We'll next time. So Scotty, I guess the specific question was, can Adam tell us where to get those cable troughs?
Oh,
and I'm not sure what he's talking about.
The cable, I guess I'm not sure what. Maybe he can reiterate.
It could be a typo there. I thought he was talking about your raceways and.
Well, the tanks came from glass cages. I can say that they're 3/4 inch glass. Cable troughs. Maybe he can come back and reiterate that. I'm guessing it might have been a typo or something, but no. And to their credit, I haven't had any issues with the tanks themselves, but it's just one of those things that I have to think about. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't have put glass up there just for the sheer sake of the weight, the added weight. The tank's empty about 1,000 pounds. Yeah. And just a lot of unnecessary weight that didn't have to be up there.
So this is an interesting question from Variant. What would Adam say is something that vendors, commercial aquaculturists do that may not be recommended for a hobbyist and display tanks that you have at home? Anything that you do at a commercial level that you would?
Oh, for sure. Run lots of yellow spectrum high power lighting. I would never run 65 Ks over a display, just because it just doesn't look that great. But it's great for growing coral. Just not so great for looking at it. Unless you're really into that, but that would be one thing. I know. I don't think I'm alone in this, but I run, all my T5s have really heavy on the Tropic bulb, like it's a Geisman Tropic 65K. Specifically, that would be something that, in fact, I get asked about lighting in T5 all the time, and I give them my little spiel about, I have a lot of yellow bulbs in there, but if it was over display, I would do this, and certainly not be use yellow, 65K spectrum bulbs, but. Let me try to think.
I know some folks I've had on have talked about using lithium chloride, and that's not something for the faint of heart to use.
Oh, yeah, like stuff like that. Like I don't think I would go near that. I mean, that's for dealing with like pop states and stuff, right? So yeah, that would be like way on the lower on my list of things. Like if I had a problem and I needed desperately to solve it, like I may get there, but like that's not something that I would consider doing otherwise.
Scotty Damron clarified he was talking about your coral raceways. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the tanks. They're from Glass Cages, and they were just I basically said, what's the biggest pain you get? What's the biggest pain you can make it out of? And it's not quite 12 foot. They said the 12 foot was like an additional. It was a special thing for the 12 foot. So it's about 11 foot, like 9 inches and some change, and by 4 foot. So, that's the base and the tank. And so that kind of dictated how big the tanks were. But, man, Glass Cages tanks have gotten more expensive.
Well,
I will, I bought, I bought a 300 gallon many, many years ago, and it was like refreshingly cheap, like almost like in like spooky cheap. And I mean, I get it because that's just the way of the world, but Glass Cages is not competitively priced with some of the big league. Like it's expensive now. Like, I mean, I was kind of surprised. I was browsing in there like a year or two ago, and I was just like, wow, like the tank that I got, I think like my 300 cost me like $600 or something. I mean, it was like negligible. They're up to
it's like the price of glass has gone way up. Like if you want to get like low iron Starfire glass or something like that, it's like a commodity. I mean, it's like goes up and down, and I think also now with COVID, there's just a whole bunch of different things happening in terms of supply chain issues and rate and.
Yeah, well, I know acrylic as well. I've got the guy that makes my racks is Ben at BOA, Building an Obsession, and he was having a heck of a time getting acrylic. And I mean, he had some serious problems back in like the fall, I think. So it's going around. I mean, I guess everything's kind of been one thing. I don't know if this is coronavirus related, but like, I don't know. Do you use Reborn in your reactors?
I do. Yes.
Like the two little fish Reborn. Do you remember when it used to be like big and chunky?
It changed.
Like pretty clean and normal? Yeah, it's small and kind of weird now. And, I don't know what to make of it, but, things like that seem to have kind of come. In fact, I think that this Tropic Marin thing is probably, related to some degree, with the supply chain issues or something. So, yeah, I mean, the hobby is certainly affected by that as we all kind of have been, but
you mentioned something that I want to address in terms of building obsession, the frag racks. I think the acrylic frag racks. That's something that I recently swapped out. I used to use egg crate, and I had always like a lot of like algae issues with the egg crate, and even the stuff that was that it was sold as conditioned for an aquarium that wouldn't leach phosphate out and all that stuff. So I think it was building an obsession that I got these acrylic frag racks from, and quite the difference, in terms of not having to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm totally with you. Like you can't clean egg crate.
Yeah,
it's a real pain in the butt to like get down and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. I contacted him a couple of years ago, and I just kind of said, "Can you make some frag racks for me?" And in fact, I keep buying more. Like that's all. I don't use egg crate at all anymore.
Yeah.
So, it seems like, actually, yeah. I mean, I could go on and on, but it seems like all the little quirky issues that I had with egg crate are gone because I don't have egg crate anymore.
It's been amazing. I mean, I've been using for a couple of months, or maybe not that long, but knock on wood that. Question about whether you use a calcium reactor. The answer is yes. Probably a big old Geo. The biggest one they got that isn't a custom model, and kind of like set it and forget it. I mean, I had a calcium reactor before I even had a tank set up, but like I bought one from a neighbor that I had. I didn't really know what it is. I didn't really know how it works, but like I had it set up on an old 90 gallon, and
I mean, this is a long, long time ago, but I've never not had a calcium reactor. I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it's just once I figured out kind of how it actually works, you know, that I ran that one for years without a pH controller. I mean, I just kind of, you had to be into it.
I used to do the same thing.
It was, yeah, right. I mean, I never had a problem. Might have melted the media every once in a while, but I mean, it was the kind of thing where I didn't rely on the controller at all. It didn't have a pH probe, so I mean, it wasn't even an option. It was all chlorine, like a 1502 or something. But that kind of I mean, that was the crash course I needed to really understand how to use the calcium reactor effectively. And I don't think I would ever do it differently unless you know, calcium reactor media became unavailable. So, you know, if I didn't have a choice, you know, I would certainly dose. But you know, it's kind of like once they're dialed in, it's pretty amazing piece of equipment you can easily take for granted. That's for sure.
So we're probably getting near to wrapping this thing up, and I wanted to kind of ask you a broad question that you know, potentially could be great advice for hobbyists in terms of. And I might have asked you this the last time I had you on, but I think it's worth asking you again. And that is, you know, what would be like your top 3 things that would be most important to have a successful SPS dominant reef tank?
Good question. Probably on the top of the list would be to not freak out when they die. I mean, you know,
it happens.
I mean, that's what I tell people. Like, don't get too attached because they die, and it could be nothing to do with you or the tank or anything like that. Like, you know, the piece that you like so much, you know, try not to get too attached because it may die, and it may have nothing to do with anything that you've done. Take it from me. You know, first and foremost, you know, don't try to keep your freak out level, you know, manageable when that happens. You know, and of course, number 2 would be alkalinity. I mean, a tank will not be successful if your alkalinity is all over the place. I mean, I'm convinced of that. Again, it doesn't have to be where I keep mine, you know, but pick a number that, you know, maybe between, you know, 7 and 12 that seems to be working for you, and keep it there. You know, however you got to do it, keep it there. And I mean, like Elk is definitely one of the parameters that you know, like you will see the effect. You know what I mean? It's not like some things, you know, we're talking about potassium, that sort of thing. Like when your elk does something weird, like your corals, you can tell. I mean, like weird things happen, and sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's real bad. But I would say of all other parameters, and I know that we have these machines that test it for us, probably not a bad idea to have a titration kit on the shelf as well to double check against anything, or just if you have any idea that maybe you know, your machine isn't accurate, to have something to check it against. But and number 3 definitely would be like a good solid RODI unit. I mean, I think that kind of like the tank, it's water. Water is the main ingredient, and you know, I think a lot of people take water for granted, probably take their filter for granted, and it may not be working as well as I think it is, or you know, that sort of thing. Like usually when someone comes to me with problems, the first thing we talk about is their RO unit. I mean, I'll just ask them, like, can you tell me a little bit about it? You know, how old is it? What kind of, you know, what are your tolerances and that sort of thing? You know, so I would say good, clean water, you know, that you're confident is good, you know, stable parameters as always. And, you know, don't get too attached to those acrofrags or colonies, because, you know, they will die. I mean, they're not going to keep them all alive forever. There's no, you know, don't get too attached. You can get more.
What species of acropora would you think is the quirkiest, the hardest to keep? You know, millipora, tenuis. Any
for me,
echinatus.
This be the most finicky. I've lost more in shipping than any other coral by far. I mean, it's doing good for a month, then it looks terrible, might die, might look okay. I mean, I'd say far beyond. I mean, I'd say all of my other corals pretty much in the same boat as far as like they can handle a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I don't really think too much about it. Echinata just kind of sucks for me. I mean, that would be the one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a smooth skin, you know, acro and all that stuff, and yeah, don't demand as much light.
Just a finicky bird.
I seem to.
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't cracked the code. Maybe I don't know.
Sometimes for me, millies are kind of tough. You know, they're kind of like the canary in the coal mine.
Millies comes in waves for me. Because sometimes they're doing great and sometimes they're all doing poorly. Like it's the kind of thing where it's like the millie wave, and I'm right there with you. I think we're not alone in this one either. But yeah, definitely a good barometer. But but they have spells of doing wonderful versus the Echinata, where it's just always kind of like, seems like it's just mad at me. Like it's never, it's never happy. I can't, no matter what I do, no matter how nice I talk to it. But I'm with you with Millies too, because it seems like you could have a bunch of Millies doing great, and then all of a sudden, no idea, they all look like crap. And again, I've talked to a lot of people that seem to have the same. I can't explain that one either. But you're not alone.
No, it definitely can be frustrating. It is tough to be like, you have a tank and things aren't cruise control, and then all of a sudden you kind of like just go by the tank and you see one frag or one little colony is like RTN, and you're like, what the heck? And it's like so frustrating. It's like everything's going so well. Right. Why did it just like drop? It's frustrating.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that's the story of my life, man. Believe me. That's kind of like why I said when you see that, it's a very hard thing. It's taken me years and years to try to quell that like initial freak out, and I can tell when I have a real problem. Like usually if there's multiple corals that are doing bad, I know I've got something going on. But every day I go up there, I pull dead frags out. I mean, there's not a day that's gone by where I haven't had something that went wrong, and some level like that. So it's just the kind of thing where you just have to try to not let it freak you out too much. I mean, it's hard. It's hard.
If you're starting to see some, STN or whatnot going on a colony, one of your grow out colonies, what do you typically try to do? Do you try to like immediately frag it up, or do you do a dip, or?
I generally don't dip. I think that, and I tell people a lot of this too. I don't know that there are any dips that really offer anything therapeutic. Especially to like a stressed out coral. There may be some iodine based dips, but to take an already stressed coral and dip it, I think more times than not is just to push it over the edge, unfortunately. But, I'm not that consistent though. Like if it's something that I really like, my response will be way different than something that, if I lose it, I may not care so much. But generally, after the initial heart flutter and, kind of like, I'll try to ride it out as long as I can. If a piece is going downhill, and I need to frag it up, that's usually a last resort. But I like dipping stressed coral. It's never worked out for me.
Yeah,
in trying to like offer any kind of therapeutic.
Yeah, no, same with me. I've never dipped. I think what I've always tried to do is, like you said, you try to hang on as long as possible. But at some point in time, I was like, all right, I gotta save part of this coral. I gotta frag it. And for me, maybe I've got like a 20% success ratio doing that. And maybe it's because. It's because I just like really don't want to believe it's happening. I just want to leave it alone and just hope that it's going to resolve itself on its own. But it doesn't happen usually that way.
I know all too well. In fact, my captive collection was pretty much grown from like the frag that survived off the wild colony that died. I mean, it's a little different apples than oranges talking about wild colonies, but the frags do. In fact, that's another write-up I was going to write and I never really got to. But like, there's something about frags that makes them extremely resilient. Yes. And I don't know if it's just when they're broken off, they create some kind of. I think they might even touch on this last time too. But like frags, like you could drop a frag on the floor and come back and a dry, crusty frag and it'll almost come back to life. Where colonies just are the exact opposite. I mean, like they don't like to be moved, they don't like to be touched, they don't like to be anything like that. I'm sure there's a scientific reason for it. I mean, in fact, I would love to see more research done about why is a frag so resilient versus a colony. And even another kind of something to ponder is that when we get like wild colonies, like from Australia, whatever, those are frags as well. They're just larger. I mean, it's a larger frag off a much larger colony. But I've had tremendously good success with wild stuff, living, the frags living off of the colony. Like the colony, I mean, the chunk doesn't make it, but the frag does wonderful. And like I said, 90% of my collection is from that frag that survived off the Aussie colony that crashed. Go figure. So something to ponder at least. I'm sure people smarter than me. I would be interested to see kind of what they thought about that.
All right, man. Well, listen. I guess we're gonna wrap it up, Adam. I can't thank you enough for being a part of the live stream. Did you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, man. No, I just want to say thanks this time, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's always a blast. And again, if we do it again, just maybe I'll pick a different background and we'll
well, definitely would like to have you
sure.
back on. I know everybody got a lot out of this, and I always learn something, from you. So I don't think I'm gonna take the big hit on the wallet this time and buy a very expensive air exchange unit that you talked me into on the last live stream, but
there's nothing else I can really.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad that worked out for you, though. That's wonderful. It's always the same. Anyone that I've kind of given that spiel, that's the feedback I've gotten. Like, yep, it did everything.
Somebody did ask.
But no, I just want to say thanks, man. I appreciate the consideration. It's fun. Like, I don't do this very often, but it's always fun, man. I appreciate the.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, listen, I'm going to let you go, and I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in. I also want to thank the sponsors, Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine, for supporting the show, and also to remind you folks that you can catch audio replays of Rappin with ReefBum as podcasts, available now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. My next live stream will be on Thursday, January 27th. That's next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Levi Peterson, who is also known as the Oddball Reefer. Levi also works at ACI Aquaculture, so that should be another great show. Yep. Cool. Until then, everybody, be safe and be well, and we will see you next time.